If I would tell you, I'd make you dizzy. I'll tell you afterwards. No, I figured it out. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't make a yeah, no, thank God. It was wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. Okay. I feel like you guys are literally up my nose over there. Hi, Nancy. How are you?
Hi.
Let me move this back a little bit. I mean,
you want to put it here?
Yeah. Okay. Hi guys, Nadine, Katie, Sophia, Laura. Oh, it's so good to see all you guys. Thanks. Okay, it's funny, last night we had a great event here and it ended, I got home pretty late. I don't know what time you guys got home, but I got home like after 10 by the time we closed up. Good to see you. So I asked Judy, so okay, I have to go home and prepare a class. So she said, oh, you could totally just wing it, right? You also said that. You're like, you could wing it. And you said like David would do that every now and then. He would just ask the rabbi. So if I have like, it's kind of like a get out of jail free card, or do not pass go, do not collect 200, whatever you want, like a free homework pass. So I'm gonna save that. Okay, bank it. I'm gonna use that when life gets really hectic, which it is pretty hectic. But I actually, so I came home at 10 o'clock and I started preparing, and I'm so excited for this week's tour, for this week's class, that we actually have, there's a lot to talk about. So it just happened. It happened. Until about 3 seconds ago, I was preparing this class. Okay, so there's a lot we're gonna do, and I might sit down just so I see everything in front of me. Sit, stand. I'll start standing because I feel like more energy that way. But eventually I want to go through a whole lot of things. Today's class, and thank you, Susie, for having a chavruta, a study partner with me last week, because we went through like all the things that I still want to fit into this topic of loving your fellow. And some of it doesn't pertain to us so much. Like some of it is just like not so relatable. So we kind of pulled from the rest of this book that I'm using on interpersonal relationships and business, home, and society. We pulled all the things that would be meaningful to all of us in our lives. So we're going to start with a story that I shared last night, which is a famous story from Rabbi Yisroel Salanter, who thought so big. He's the Musar giant, and he wanted to change the world, but he realized he couldn't change anyone. Like he had all these great ideas. He's like on a soapbox, like that guy in Manhattan, like save the world, like the world is coming to an end. So when no one listens, like everyone just like walks by, it's like air conditioning, right? So Rabbi Yisroel Salanter was like, this is not working. Like he had all these grandiose ideas like to heal the world, but no one was listening. So he decided to start with him. And that's what happened. He changed himself. He made the changes that he felt so passionate about. And it ripple affected his family, his community, his country, and the world. Okay, so that's how we're gonna look at this topic in a way that obviously, where do you start? It starts with you, right? When we had that second class, and Adrian, we were talking about loving your fellow, and you were like, but what if, like, doesn't it start with you? You have to first love yourself. It's a prerequisite, right? If we think about the 3 relationships that we're constantly working on in our lives, it's inner, outer, and upwards. Those are the 3 balls that we need to juggle all the time. Okay, so there are 3 pillars that the world stands on. Okay, this is quote, hello, from Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers. Okay, this is a famous quote that Rabbi Shimon HaTzadik, the righteous Shimon, says. The world is standing on 3 pillars. Okay, let's take a guess. What are those 3 Jewish pillars? Torah, that's the first one. You got it. Okay, that's the third one. That's also right? Everything is right. But the second one is avoda, service. So al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed. There are three things that the world stands on. Al HaTorah. Good, you got it. You know the song? I know this. I'm excited. Al HaTorah, the Torah, Avoda, service, which when we had the temple, our service was sacrifices. Now it is prayer. So it's this connection. And Al Gmilut Chasadim. Okay, so once again, it's not just throwing these words in any random order. When I asked you guys, what are the three pillars? You all said Torah was the first one. Torah is a prerequisite. It's how we understand what chesed is. If we don't have an understanding of what chesed is, we're doing chesed wrong. Remember we spoke about chesed gone wrong? Like I'm like the greatest example of this. Like when I want to give so much and I want to do so much and I'm making like a 7-course meal for the lady that had a baby down the street and my kids are like peanut butter and jelly again. Seriously, so we have to kind of like, that is so me. Like, yeah, it's fine, guys. We'll have cereal. Like, but it has to be done properly. So what is chesed? And we're going to learn from the Torah perspective what chesed is. So chesed begins at home. Okay. So here's like a real life example. I have a friend that is struggling with her family, struggling with her kids. It's like, we all have somewhat dysfunctional homes at some times in our lives, but right now their household is like, I don't know if it's more up or down. I don't know what's coming. And she is such a big heart that she wants to foster other people's kids. And how I have to tell my friends that it might not be the right thing for this time. Right? Because she has such a big heart. She wants to give and she has a home, right? She has a home. She has lots of love, but right now her kids need her. So where does chesed start? There is a hierarchy that the Torah teaches us about chesed. Where does it start? We all know it starts at home. Then where does it spread? So when I say home, what does that mean? It means your family. It means if your brother-in-law is out of a job, and they're having a hard time paying their rent, you should not be writing big checks to save the whales or whatever organization it is that has nothing to do with your inner circle. That's really, really funny. That's really, really cute. Adrienne Gold, who's our mutual friend. Adrienne is right. So Adrienne, she jokes like when we have like these big momentum fundraisers, she's always like, guys, and if you make, she's online, like, to the world saying like, make donations. She's like, if you make a large donation, I will come, I will move in, I will raise your kids. She's like, God knows I messed up my own. I'll do it better this time. So sometimes our heart is just so big. Okay. So Al HaTorah, Al HaAvoda, Al Gmilut Chasadim. So now we're going to talk about Gmilut Chasadim because Gmilut Chasadim, loving kindness, is the pillar that is in our interpersonal relationships. It has to do with us and others. Okay, Torah, us and Hashem. Avoda, service of God, us and Hashem. Okay, being Adam Lamakol. That's like half the Torah. And now what we're learning about between man and his fellow. So that is the pillar of Gmilut Chesed, okay? Which, by the way, Gmilut Chesed is an acronym, and I think we spoke about this, for Gemach, which means to give and to lend, and so a Gemach, right? We spoke about this, I think? Yes. It's like a free lending society, right? Like you could have a Gemach for anything under the sun, right? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? I think we mentioned it at one point. Okay, so I'd like to start with a morning prayer, one of my favorites. This is morning blessing. Sorry, it's a fast day today. So I have not had a drink of water. So I'm like so parched. You guys could drink, you could do your thing. But do you remember last class we spoke about the 10th of Tevet, Asara B'Tevet, as being the the third of the sad days. So today is the day that many people fast. It's not a major fast, it's considered a minor fast. So like, I don't always make it through to the end. Like it's not as severe as Yom Kippur, but it's as you guys remember, we spoke a little bit about it last week. It's the day that the walls were surrounded, and it was kind of like the beginning of the end for the Holy Temple. Okay, so if I a little dry. Okay, so this is one of my favorite blessings, and I'll read it. I'll read it in. Maybe I'll sing it. Okay, I don't have a good voice though. Okay. Maybe I won't sing it. Okay, so in Hebrew, it's Elu Devarim Sha'ada. Oh, sorry. Did I forget how it goes? Elu Devarim Sha'adam Ochel, Pirutehem Ba'olam Hazeh, V'Hakeren Kayemet Lo Olam Haba. The Eluhain. This is the song. Kibud Aveim. Do you know it? Ukmilus Chazadim Bahashkamat Beit HaMikdash Shacharis Be'arvit Ve'achnasat Orchim Uvi Korcholim Ve'achnasat Kala Ulevayat HaMet Ve'iyon Tefila Vavat Shalom Ben Adam Lachavero V'Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Okay, listen to the words. These are the things, Elu Dvarim, whose fruits, like the peirot, the fruits, a person enjoys in this world. But the real reward will come in the world to come. Okay, so these are enjoyable things that it's about to teach us. Mitzvot that we do, that when we do it, we feel good. But the ultimate reward, we don't even touch upon the reward in this world. It's all going to be in the world to come. And these are them, okay? We're doing really well with them, actually. The honor due to father and mother, acts of kindness, early attendance at the house of study, morning and evening, so going to synagogue or coming to the L'chaim Center to learn, hospitality to guests, visiting the sick, providing for a bride, escorting the dead, being involved in prayer, and to end it off, bringing peace between man and his fellow. Okay, and then it says to close, and the study of Torah is equivalent to all of them. Okay, so in this little few line paragraph, we are learning what is so important. These are all mitzvot that have to do between man and his fellow. And these are things that we do. Now, we're going to learn today how to do them a little bit better, okay? Honoring our parents, we spent 2 weeks on that, 2 classes. We're going to speak about acts of kindness today. Coming to a place of learning, a place of study, coming together, community, so important. Visiting the sick, providing for a bride, escorting the dead, being involved in prayer and bringing peace between 2 people. And on top of all of that is studying Torah. Okay, so once again, if we go to those 3 pillars and we start with Torah, Avoda, and Chesed, okay, in order to do the Chesed, that's why learning Torah is over them all. Because we need to understand, what does Hashem want? We're not just doing it, we're not like freelance, like we're going to do this today, we're going to do that. There's actually structure in how we give charity, how much we give, how much we're not supposed to give, right? There's structure in how we do all of these mitzvot, how we host people, how we bury people, how we marry people. And these are all mitzvot that we do with our entire bodies. Okay, so isn't it such a beautiful, the Elu Devarim, okay, in the first few pages of the Sidur, it's just like a reminder. So here's a good way of checking in with yourself, okay, because we have a lot happening in our lives. There is something called a cheshbon hanefesh. Have you ever heard those words? It's like an accounting of your nefesh, of your soul. Okay, and usually people do a cheshbon, like this accounting, like as if you're doing your taxes or your books, right? Before you go to sleep, you ask yourself a few questions. So a good question, a good way to do a small accounting for your day is going through this prayer. Did I do one of these mitzvot? It's not every day that we're able to be a part of a celebration of a wedding or to help a bride, right? It's not every day. It's not every day. Well, every day you could take a challah hug and chicken soup to someone that's in need. So maybe that's a good one that L'chaim is actually doing well at. Please help yourself and spread the love. But are we doing these mitzvot every day? Like, how are we burying the dead every day? Do you know that if there is someone, a Jewish person that has passed away and no one has taken care of the body, no one has buried the body, no one has taken care of all the details, according to Jewish law, the entire city is not allowed to go to work until we take care properly of this person that has passed away. It's on everyone. So it's a question. I mean, you might not want to get involved in the Chaver Kadisha, right? It's not everyone could do that in the burial society, which is a very, very beautiful mitzvah. You might not want to be involved, but you could support it. You could write a check once a year, right? To have a little bit of these mitzvah, right? It's not for everyone. Even the hachnasat kala, helping a bride. I mean, how do we do that? There are many, many funds and many, many brides out there that are struggling to set up their home. Can we be a part in that mitzvah? Right. So this is the cheshbon. The accounting is like going through these, like, how am I doing? How am I doing with my honoring my parents? We learned about it, but now have I made that phone call? Have I helped in whatever way that I can? Right? You wish you could. I know. But there's so many ways to honor your parents even after they're gone, right? You could learn in their merit. You could maybe we'll do today's lesson in honor in the zechut, in the merit. My father is having a surgery tomorrow. So Shlomo Zalman ben Gutza the Lipa, he should have a healing, a complete, easy, speedy recovery, and we should only have good news. But even that, like just putting something in the merit of someone that's alive, someone that's no longer alive, it's elevating their soul. So it never ends. It never ends. You're able to still do it in different ways. Okay, I want to talk about what trips us up. Okay, because it's really nice. We all love the idea of chesed. I mean, this is such a fluffy, beautiful topic, right? Kindness, loving kindness. Like the word to love in Hebrew, the root of it, hav, means to give, right? Hav is the Aramaic root of ahava, okay? So we love this. It's like loving kindness, like what could be better? It's amazing. But something usually gets in our way because we're not doing it all day. So what is the pitfall? What is your pitfall? What is stumbling and blocking you from doing what you wish you did? Like, I'll give you an example. Today, I got a message from a lady in our community, and she said, I'm so sorry. She said, I sent you a message on your birthday and you didn't respond. I just wanted to make sure you got it. So, I mean, this happens often to me because I have like WhatsApp messages, text messages, messenger messages, like, I don't know, Facebook messages. I don't know, so many messages that I drop balls, right? I'm a human being. I don't want to be on my phone 24/7. So sometimes I'll see it flash on my phone. I'll say, oh, that's so nice. And I'll forget to respond. And she was clearly very sensitive about it. And I said to her, so I left her a message saying, I thought that I responded. Like in my heart, I saw it. I was like, wow, I'm so touched. And I had a response, but I was probably driving. I was probably busy. I was probably doing something, cooking dinner. I don't know. So sometimes we have good intentions, but we don't actually bring them out into reality. Okay. So what is it that trips us up? What holds us back from being all that we could be, from doing all the kindness that our hearts want to do? Okay, life, okay, that sums it up. Oh, you got it. Procrastination. That's it. I wanted to talk about that. Okay, so the midah, the character trait that we're going to talk about just for a few minutes, is in Hebrew we say zrizut, which is alacrity. Okay, it's not like a word that we use so often. It's alacrity. Have you heard that word? You've heard it? It's not a word that we use like in modern English. I don't know, but alacrity is like zrizut. So in Hebrew, it's like a real concept. It's a character trait. Okay, that's the thing. Like, how do you define a word that's undefinable? Alacrity is like you get it done. You just do it. Like zrizut is like you rush. I'll give you some examples now to bring it out, to kind of paint a picture. When we look in the Torah, we see the traits of the great people that whatever they were doing with zrizut. So Abraham, for example, he's going to sacrifice his son, the binding of Isaac. We see in the Torah, it says like 3 times in the Pasuk that he gets up early in the morning and he saddles his donkey and he's like rushing to do the mitzvah. That's actually why there's the custom of doing a Brit Milah early in the morning to show God, like it's hard to do a Brit Milah. Like you just gave birth to this perfect child and now you're putting the child under the knife for 30 seconds, whatever it is. It's like, okay, we all do it. But it's hard for the parent, but the custom is to do it early in the morning, right? You usually have the Brit right after morning services, right? Usually, not always, it's not law, but we are trying to emulate the forefathers and the foremothers. Rivka, okay, Rebecca, her story when she's by the well and she's drawing water. It says again and again, she runs to the well, she draws the water, she's giving everyone, you see her alacrity, her zrizut. Okay, we see this again and again when we're going to a mitzvah. Don't wait. Okay, and the words are al tachmitzena, and the tachmitzena has the root chametz. Like if you wait too long, it's going to become leavened. It's not going to be matzah anymore. It's going to be bread. It's going to get stale. Okay, if you wait, you have such a short window until you've lost the opportunity. Like opportunities are coming at us all the time. If we don't take it, it's gone. It's gone forever, right? And this is the scary thing that we really need to face, because there's much to learn about life and death and the afterlife. And there's so much about in Judaism about the soul. The soul is eternal, right? It never dies, right? The physical, we're just here for, this is the prosdor, which is Hebrew, which is Aramaic for the hallway to the world to come, which is the banquet hall. This 80, whatever amounts, 80, 100, 120, sometimes much less. This lifetime is just the hallway. This is nothing to the world to come. But the scary thing is that when we get up to the world to come, we get everything that we get to reap, all that we've planted. We get to receive the reward for all the good deeds that we've done, but we can no longer do any more good deeds. You cannot do mitzvot up in the next world. Mitzvot, angels are not doing mitzvot. They're not. They're surrounding God and singing God. I don't know what they're doing up there, but we do the work here and we reap the benefits up there. So this idea of what hell is, scary concept, that hell is getting up there and seeing what we actually could have done with our life. And that is hell. The dissonance between what you did and what you could have done. I know, it's so huge. That is hell, that is turmoil. And every single person that gets up there goes through this process, this washing machine of the soul that takes 11 months. Everyone goes through this rectification and figuring out where they stay up there, right? Some might not have earned such a high place up in heaven, whatever. Who knows? I don't know so much about the next world, but no, there is a lot. We do have some teachings about. I think David did a class about it, right? I've heard people talk. There is a lot on the topic, but it's definitely not my expertise. But I know that Rabbi David gave a class, and everyone for years, people are talking about it years later. But this is a good topic that maybe we will revisit to really talk about it, because it's not so bleak. It's only bleak for us down here. They go up, they have this cleansing, and they find their place up in heaven. And then they're reunited. It's one soul, they're joined souls, and it's just us that are in pain. It's a hard concept. It's a really hard concept. And maybe we will be brave enough to go into the topic of reincarnation at some point, because we do believe in reincarnation. And it's a hard concept. It is. It is. And yeah, it's a very interesting topic. And have you guys ever dabbled in this topic? Did David speak about it? So I mean, I think I mentioned this book that I just read that it's totally blown me away. It's called I've Been Here Before. So as I don't know if it might be hard for some people. I gave it to Jackie Wall and she was like she couldn't get through it. Like it's Sari Yocheved Rigler, and this was like her life's work. She actually said that all the books she wrote until now were just to give her like cred, so that she could write this book, which she always felt was her mission. It's a really, really incredible book, and we could probably have a session on it. Yeah, we could talk about it. As children and grandchildren of Holocaust survivors, it's something that really, really talks to us because, we just feel so like, where did all those sparks go, right? And actually, after the Holocaust, a great rabbi went to a very large Jewish community and he said, please bring all the young people together. The head of the community thought he wanted to collect money. So he said, no. He said, they said, the young people, they might not be able to donate. He's like, bring the young people. And he gets everyone together. I think this took place in Miami. It's in the book. She writes about it. And he says, there are so many souls that are waiting to come down and be born into Jewish mothers. There's not enough Jewish mothers having children. And he's begging this young crowd of a couple hundred people, please have children because these souls are going to be put into non-Jewish bodies. So the whole book is basically interviewing non-Jews that had this past life experience, and they at some point they realized that they were a Jewish soul. And out of the thousands of people that she interviews, half of them convert to Judaism. It is fascinating. I mean, you can't make these things up. Like, it's mind-boggling. So yes, this is real. It's called I've Been Here Before by Sari Yocheved Rigler. I have it at home. Happy to lend it out.
But it's really hard.
It's hard to read. It's hard to read. Wow. I mean, maybe we could do something together with it so that I could give some context. Like, it just might be hard for you, Doris. That's like, you feel things so deeply. It's so close to home for you. It just might be hard. My mother read it. She had a hard time with it. Mm-hmm. My husband is reading it. I hope it's okay if I say this, but my husband, oh my gosh, he's been reading it for a long time, like slowly. Like, he reads, like, we don't have so much time to like read books, but it's about 3 words and then we fall fast asleep at midnight, So, but he was reading it over Sukkot, and he started reading it, and then he actually had like a really powerful dream, and he said it was a dream that was recurring for much of his life since he was a little teeny child. And he basically said, like, with the context of the book and what he learned from it, he realizes where his soul was coming from. And it was a big aha moment. And it wasn't from the Holocaust. It was, well, it's very, the stories are hard. You have stories of kids that know, like 2-year-olds, 4-year-olds that have these images of cattle cars, and like all of these souls died early, and their soul went up and was put into another body, and they have to complete the mission. Like, we're all here to do a tikkun, a fixing. So we don't know where our souls are coming from. We have, like, the soul is a very complex thing, but until a soul completes a mission, it's put back into this world again and again. That is reincarnation. So we want to do the fixing that we can, because we don't want to be coming back down again. We want to complete the job in our world. And God is telling us, do loving kindness. Like, that's all you need to do. Like, love your fellow as you love yourself. Work on yourself. Fix yourself. It's all about a fixing, right? We're born one way. We want to, at the end of our life, we want to be completely different to the way we started out, right? We want to give and give and give until it hurts. Give of ourselves, give of everything that God gave us, because it's not ours. It's all a gift from Hashem, which brings us to the topic of what trips us up. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit more about this, because it's really big. So I brought my pet. Okay, my pet, my little prop. Can you guys see over here? I don't know if you can see. It's that my frog. This sits on my desk. And did you ever notice this on my desk, Julie? Okay. There's a lot on my desk. It's the clutter. If you clear away the clutter. Yes, but I have this frog. It has been sitting on my desk in my workspace for a couple years because I learned the concept to eat your frog. Has anyone read that book, Eat Your Frog? I don't remember who wrote it, but it's a small book. And basically what it means is to prioritize. That you need to eat your frog, which is the hardest thing, first thing. Because if you put it aside, you're never going to get to it, right? I love a good to-do list, okay? And as like some of you know, like I write it all down, and even if I've already did something, I'll still write it and check it off because it feels so good, right? So that's just some people. There's two types of people. There's like, does anyone else relate? Like checking things off? Okay, it feels good. So if you have a long to-do list and you have things like that difficult conversation that you have to have with someone, you're just going to keep pushing that to the bottom of the list, and it's never going to happen. So when you have something that's hard to do, you have to do it first. You have to get it out of the way, and then you'll have space and time for everything else. So I teach this to my kids, and I teach it to my bat mitzvah girls. We talk about prioritizing. Like if you have a big vat, right? A big here. All these rocks, right? Big rocks, small rocks, pebbles, sand. And you want to fit so much into your vessel. How would you do it? What is the smartest, wisest way of fitting so much packed into your vessel, your life? How would you do it technically? Big ones first, medium, small, fill in the sands and the cracks. Perfect. Okay. So that is really what we need to do. We need to figure out what are the big rocks in our life. What are our values? What is important? There's things that we want, and there's things that we need. Like when my kids say, I need this, I say, do you need it or do you want it? Because not everything that we want, like we don't need to spend 3 hours on Facebook a day. Like that's extra, right? We don't need to. My husband he said he's trying to train for a marathon. We'll see if it ever happens. I think he's run like for about 10 minutes since he decided that like a year ago. But one time he had like his thing on his like profile picture said, if there's time for Facebook, there's time to run, which is so true. Because if running is such a big goal, that's not my goal, but you know, maybe running like somewhere is a goal. But if running is such a big goal, put it in first, because of course it's awful and it's the weather and there's so many reasons. But if you want to make it happen, you need to make it happen. So this is really what trips us up. It's the fact that we what was the word that you used? Okay, we procrastinate. Right? Okay. Hold on, you what? Okay. So get this. This is really important. If you're taking notes, you want to write this down. Okay. So the character trait of alacrity, according to the Orchot Tzadikim, which is one of our main Musar books, the ways of the path of the righteous. If you've learned that. So, okay, this is quote from the book. Okay, this is so powerful. Alacrity, zrizut, is the crown jewel to all traits. Okay, we never even heard the word before. And now he's saying that is the most important trait to work on, because with this character trait, you will take action to do what is necessary to refine all the other traits. Okay, this has to take precedence over all the other beautiful traits, the anger and the jealousy and all the things that we have to deal with. We need to put alacrity first on top of the list, because if we don't put it first, we're not going to do anything in our lives. Yeah. Okay. It's so funny. I would never describe it as that. Love it. Love it. Okay, so alacrity is the goal. Okay, now let's just pull it apart for a second. What is the flip side to alacrity? What does it look like when we don't have alacrity? So procrastination, but what type of, you said it, laziness. Okay, so laziness is considered a very despicable trait. Like it's interesting how you see what God is so angry about. Like God hates machloket. We spoke about that. He hates fighting. God hates laziness because what laziness says is I have all the time in the world. Like there's always tomorrow. That shows no gratitude for your day, for your life, right? If we're just like, pushing it off, not getting things done, it's basically saying, God, like I have all the time, I'm invincible. It's so rude, right? Every moment is a gift. Every day is a gift. We need to take our time. Time is the most valuable gift that we have in our lives, right? There's nothing more valuable. In fact, I wanted to quote you. It was Queen Elizabeth that says, here we go. There we go. Queen Elizabeth, she says she would give all her possessions for one moment of time. There was actually a great teacher. Her name was Zahava. You guys know who I'm talking about? Zahava. Nechama. What's her last name? Nechama. I can't remember. Yeah. Oh, one of these great women that has like written many books on the Torah. So she was quite a big person, and she passed away pretty young. And she said, you know what I would do if I had just one more day? This is like towards the end of her life when she was so sick. She said, if I had just one more day, you know what I would do? And her students were like, what would you do? Like, would you speak to hundreds of people? Like, what would you do? Like, she was such a big influencer. She has dozens of books. She said, I would go home and I would put up a big pot of soup, big vegetable soup. And while it was cooking, I'd sit down on the floor, my children and my grandchildren, and I'd play blocks with them. I know. It was just like using, like, what are the priorities, right? What is important? I don't know. It was just so like from this big lady, she was like a Rebbetzin Jungreis personality type. And that's all she would do. It's just like, just go home and chop up some vegetables and put it on and let it simmer and be with the kids. And like, so beautiful, so wholesome. Okay. So, I think I'm going to, a little bit more on this topic. What's the time like? Oh, wow. Okay, a little bit more, just one or two things to close up this, using our time well. So have you noticed that the busiest people that have so much on their plate are always the one that makes the time, right? They are the ones to volunteer at the school, dinners, and they're the busiest ones, okay? So there is a beautiful expression. This is written in the Gemara, that if someone has a desire to do something, they will do it, okay? It's b'derech sha'adam rotzeh lalechet, ba'molichim oto. On the path that one desires, he will be led, okay? Which basically, Lauren, remember last night when we were setting up, and like it wasn't fitting with the chairs, and I'm like, if there's a will, there's a way, right? There's always a way. So it's, there's always a way. Okay, so Nechama Leibowitz, thank you. That was her name. If you have ever learned her wisdom, that was the story that I was sharing about that special woman. Okay, so I want to share a little bit about modern day Sarah Imenu. Okay, like a modern day Sarah the matriarch. Her name was Henny Mathis. Did anyone ever hear of her or read this book? Or yeah, okay. So unbelievable, and I could speak from my heart about her because I was privileged to be one of her guests. Okay, so I'm just going to read you a little bit about who this woman was. Very simple Brooklyn-born girl who had 14 children and lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Jerusalem, in Malo Daphna. And from the time they got married, she opened her home to guests. Anyone come for meals, and they started with like 20 to 30 for every meal. And then it just very, very quickly grew to 100 to 150 on average for every meal. in a 2-bedroom apartment. There was just one small, I mean, the whole apartment is smaller than this, but there's 14 kids and there's 150 guests. Okay, so, but it was absolutely, like, I'm so grateful that I experienced it with my own eyes. Oh yeah, everyone went. And you're sitting next to, it was like a microcosm of the Jewish world. Like yeshiva boys, seminary, you don't even need, you just show up. Right? They never even knew how many to cook for. I remember, I mean, like I went into the kitchen to help and everything, and they're like, it was a big night when I was there. They were cutting the gefilte fish into like paper thin slices because they got an extra 40 guests, or she would cook 18 chickens every Shabbos. That was when she got started, right? But there was nothing lacking. There was everything, and there was so much joy. And I want to read you about, so I remember her kids also, like her kids were my age. Like her oldest was my age, a girl. So this is from her daughter, or the second oldest child, Elisheva. She remembers the day that her family acquired a second table, enabling them to accommodate more guests. We danced around the new table, Elisheva remembers, because we were doing the mitzvah of Hachnasat Orchim, welcoming guests. My father was singing loudly, and my mother, who was expecting, was dancing with us kids around the table. It's a beautiful memory. And, there's so many stories. I mean, it's a thick book. This is actually, interestingly enough, this is written by Sarah Yocheved Rigler, who wrote the book on the reincarnated souls. And she's a pretty famous Jerusalem author. So here's like, people would come, and the husband, Mordechai, would say, bring them along. He would say, there's plenty of food for everyone, which really, really encompasses like all that we're about to talk about, right? When there's space in the heart, there's space in the home. When there's space in your heart, what wouldn't you give? What wouldn't you do, right? Of course there's space. Come on in. And that's how they live their lives. This is how, I mean, Henny, unfortunately, pretty young, leaving like, I don't know, just so many descendants from her 14 kids. Like most of them are married, and her husband still does this till today in Malo Dafna. He does it on his own. I think they took 1 week off for Shiva, and then it was business as normal, but obviously without the very special matriarch she was the modern Sarah, the matriarch. That was it. Abraham, let's go back to the first person in the Torah to teach us about chesed was Abraham. And Abraham's tent, we all know, was open on 4 sides. He had a surgery. He had his Brit Milah at an old age, and it's a heat wave. And he's going out. There were 3 angels, and God put them there, right? Because he was looking. He wouldn't have stopped searching for people to give to, and they didn't need him, right? They didn't need him. He needed them. He wanted to do this act of kindness. Okay, get this. This is her writing. Okay, so she is actually teaching about Hachnasat Orchim. Okay, and she says one should view one's guests as angels of God, just like Abraham, his angels, right? They don't need your kindness as much as you need to give it. This is like mic drop. Okay. The Midrash on the book of Ruth says this, speaks about this. It says, more than a rich person does for a poor person does for a rich person. Let this sit. This is so important. We think that we need to help. No, Hashem is orchestrating everything around you for you to get more out of it. Because as we said, yeah, it feels good to do something in this world, but it's the next world that we're going to get the ultimate reward. It's not even this world. This is just the as I said, the pros door, the hallway to the banquet hall. This is where we have to give and give and give. This is where we need to do so many acts of kindness, because we can't do any when we get up there. So this is the time. Sometimes my life gets very busy, and we're busy doing hopefully good things. And some people say, aren't you tired? I get that all the time. Like 10 times a day, people say, do you ever sleep? And this is what I think inside. I'll sleep after 120. There's nothing, we're not going to do anything except rest and bask in what we've created. Now is the time. This is the world of action. When this is over, all we need to do is bask in it, right? This is the time. We have to take action now. That's where Rizut comes in. That's where Alacrity comes in. If it's not now, this is what Pirkei Avot, it says, Imlo achshav ematai. If not now, when? If not, now when? If we keep pushing things off, it's never going to happen, right? So now is the time.
Yes.
Totally. And that's why receiving is sometimes giving. Like when you give someone the opportunity to do something good for you, you're enabling that goodness. It's exactly what she's saying, that we think we need to do it, but sometimes it's the flip. Sometimes we just need to receive it, right? We think we need to help or fix or save someone. Really, they're saving us, right? I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. We all want to be on the giving end. That's the truth. No one wants to be on the receiving end. That's why it's hard for us to receive. We want to save. It's built in our DNA. We want to be the givers and the doers and the fixers. The Jewish people are known to be, or we're at the forefront of fixing every problem, right? Every agriculture problem in Africa and turning the lights on in Ethiopia for villages. Like, it's Israelis that are at the forefront doing all that tikkun olam. It's part of our mission statement, right? So 100%, and it's so hard to be the receivers. When Israel needs help, it's a humbling experience when Israel is suffering or needs America, needs to rely on Iron Dome and all these things, and we need funding. It's like, we don't know who our friends are. We want to just do it ourselves. But part of the dynamic in this world is the giving and taking, and the chesed and the accepting of chesed. So I really love what you said. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, any questions until now? Because I don't even think I started my class yet. Like, I'm serious. It's been all a tangent. I want to give one more example, because Sarah Yocheved Rigler is such a great example. Anyone is welcome to borrow this book if you want to borrow it. It's a really thick read, like Emunah, faith with chicken soup, and Emunah with love and chicken soup. The Brooklyn-born girl who becomes a Jerusalem legend. It's really about, like, what do we want to be? Like, she became a legend. Like, and I can't even describe the poverty in her apartment. I still remember it 20 years later. It was hot in the summer when we were there. We were all on these, like, if you know Israel, like the keter plastic chairs that you stick to, like your skin is like stuck to it. Like, it was uncomfortable. And they're the smallest, the thinnest chairs, because it was like one after another. And we could barely fit. Like, we were like sitting like this at the table, like to eat our food. It wasn't comfortable, but what I felt in that house was something that I've never felt anywhere. It was godliness. You have no idea what I saw at that table. So at the end of her meal, when I was there was let's say the meal finished at like 11, because there was singing and there was Divrei Torah, and she would go around, everyone introduce themselves, people from all around the world, because it was like, and also Christian people, and people, like, it wasn't, she didn't card you at the door. She didn't check your bris milah, okay? Let's just put it that way. Like, everyone was there, and she had two rules. Everyone is welcome. Don't pay a cent. Just come and enjoy. No politics spoken, and be sensitive to each other. Love and kindness. That's it. Everything goes. So at the end of our meal, and this happened weekly, and it's also written about in the book, I recall that as we were cleaning up and people are emptying out, and you think like get off your feet, you've been working all day, you must be exhausted, and 14 kids that need your attention now. And knock on the door, and in comes another group of rowdy people that were like homeless or needing attention or really disheveled. I remember like being like, oh, like, it doesn't end. And people wrote in this book, I read someone wrote, like, why did they even put a door on? Like, why was it like Abraham? Like, the door was always open. Like, there was never a time that the door was closed. They would never close their door. They were literally the modern Abraham and Sarah, with their tent widely opened, and until the very last day of her life. I mean, the book goes through her whole life. She's a really simple person, and this was her mitzvah. You know how when my mom spoke, she said, "What is your mitzvah?" And she spoke about her candle lighting. Like this was her mitzvah. Hachnasat orchim. Like, oh really?
Mm-hmm.
Just welcoming guests.
How old was she when she passed away?
Really young.
Was blessed for a long life. No.
She was not. She did. She had cancer and she passed away pretty young. She did marry off a bunch of her kids. And honestly, like we don't understand things, but maybe she fulfilled her mission. In her young few years, she did a lot more than people do in a long life. Yeah, so I wanted to share the example of Gershon bird, right? Who the birds are part of our community, and I saw there's a few books up there, right? Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. Should I get it to show? It's on the bookshelf. There's like a few right next to each other. It's called The Secret Life of Gershon Bird, and he grew up in Northbrook. You have it? Oh, that's so crazy.
I'm reading it.
Oh, really? Okay, so let's just show it. Oh, it's actually I was just like reading a page or two just to remind myself of some of the details. So a secular Jewish reporter from Canada came to their house because like someone like said, there's this interesting family. They have 150 guests for every meal. By the way, this is Friday night, Saturday lunch, and they would also do it for Shabbat for the third meal. They would have it a little smaller for the third meal, but they're barely clearing up. And then they're setting it up again, right? Especially in the winter. Shabbat. Okay. So this reporter, right? This liberal Jew who had moved to Israel, like he was not so open to this way of life, and he comes there to meet them, and it's really interesting. He writes how. Like he was writing this, it's my daughter, she's calling from Israel. Okay, I'll call her in a few minutes. He writes that he was there experiencing it firsthand, and there's a German non-Jewish guest sitting next to him, like wide-eyed, and he whispers to him, "Is that how all Jewish homes are?" And the reporter, he writes, "I could barely answer for the lump in my throat." I know, right? So, yeah, it's really it's an amazing story, but it's such a this is not from 50 years ago. This is from a few years ago. This is someone in our day and age. Like this is a role model for us. Like clearly, she stretched herself a little bit more than we would be comfortable with. But I think we could all think how we could stretch ourselves. This is one of the pillars of the world, right? We're holding up the pillar. It's on you. Imagine if one of the pillars is not steady or stable or is not existent. Everything would topple. So when God created the world, and I'm going to end just with this and next time we'll start in the beginning of the class where I wanted to go. So if God created the world and God could do anything, why didn't God just create a perfect world? Why did God create a world that has fixing that needs to be done? For free will, okay, but there's more to it. There's
That's great. And then like a little man did it, God didn't really like it. And he went down backwards.
Okay, what else do we have, Susie?
The ultimate hero.
Right. Okay, good. So, and ultimately, we're supposed to emulate God. So he's the ultimate giver, and right. So he kind of put everything in place for us to become more like him. Okay, and then
So we can give mitzvah. And I'm sorry.
so for us to have free will, as they said, and for us to get merit and to do the good. So basically, what we're all saying is we are partnering with God. Okay, God wanted us to be his partners in creation, his partners in completion of the world, right? God is not like, here, go. Also, God wants us to be happy, and givers are happy people. That's it. Bottom line. I mean, it's not even so complex. God wants us to give because we're happy when we give. We're working with him. That's what Abraham did. There were people that came before Abraham that believed in God. We had Noah. We had lots of people. There were 10 generations between Noah and Abraham. But why was Abraham the paradigm of chesed? Because he actually was a partner with God. How did he bring godliness into the world? By acts of kindness. This was his way of bringing God into the world. So holy, it's so elevated. So I'm going to end with one powerful takeaway. Okay. In Israel, we have two bodies of water. We have the Dead Sea and we have the Kinneret. Okay. In Tiberias. And then it's the same line of water that comes from the Jordan River, goes all the way down through the country, right? They're connected. Same agriculture, same weather, same soil, same everything. But you could not have two different bodies of water. It could not be more extreme than these two bodies of water. The Kinneret is where we get our fresh fish from, our tilapia and our salmon, and L'Kavod Shabbos in honor of Shabbos. That's the main supply of fish. It's fresh, it's alive. And then you have the Dead Sea. Nothing could live in the Dead Sea. Nothing, salt, dead. There's not a fish. There's not any greenery. Nothing could live there even for a split second. So how is it possible to have two bodies of water that are so different, but they have the same everything around them? It's because the Dead Sea receives and doesn't give. Okay? The water comes in and it holds it in it and nothing comes out. And that is a recipe for a very bitter existence. If we are just receiving, yes, we need to receive sometimes, you're right. But if we are just being takers and not givers and not changing the world, we will be salty and bitter. We will be dead. There's nothing, think of a bitter person. We can all think of someone that's bitter, and it's because they're not giving. The best thing you could do if you are in a bad mood is give. Because you can't be sad while you're giving, right? Doris, you go to visit a lot of survivors and elderly people, and just what does it feel like? Give me one line. Like what? I know there's no words.
I get so much more from them. I'm sure they're getting,
right? It's a gift. Be able to give and just to see their face, like you open the door, and I could just picture like faces are lighting up,
especially when they see your flowers.
It's so nice. It's so nice. So that's the very powerful example of the Dead Sea. It's like we never want to do that. As we said last night, we want to be either green, we're either green and growing or brown and dying. And there's nothing in between. So being a giver is being green and growing and giving and alive. Okay. We're going to end here. It was so nice to learn with you guys. And so next class, we're going to do what we were going to do this class, which is going through all those mitzvot, which is so fascinating because we could all up our game. Like your Shiva house experience, please God, it should be in a long time. And at the end of people's old age, when we have this experience, we're going to be able to learn how to do it according to Judaism and learn how to bring respect to all of these mitzvot and elevate them. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next time. And I'll see you guys. Wait, so next week, are we? Yeah, let's talk about that.
Thank you.
I'm here. I'm having a class, or do we want to?
Why don't you ask how many will be gone?
I was going to say, in this room,
How many will be gone?
You're away. So just raise your hand if you're here next Tuesday. So I think we should do it. I think it's the majority, even if we have 10 ladies, there's lots to learn and I think we're good. And then the next week, we could, why don't we decide next week about the next week? So next week there will be class. Is that good? Is that, I don't know. Yeah. So then the next week. Hi guys, good to see you. I know.
What?
We change it, we change the date. Thank you for coming. Bye. See you. But it's not true. So I'm going to practice, but we're actually no. Like no wonder.
That's my plan.
Hysterical. Are you going? I don't know where my mask is. Are you good at the? Okay. I'm so excited for you. It's a great time.
Oh, thanks. Like just moving your house. It's not like hundred occasions. We have to that will be continuing. So, but we will. I'll miss being I'll miss being in person. But I'll talk to you once I get here or text you or whatever, and we'll figure out some time to.
Okay.
do it.
To learn.
If you want to.
Yeah, I totally want it.
Okay.
I was all over today, right? All over. Oh my God.
Are you going to learn?
Where?
Deerfield Beach.
Deerfield Beach. That's so cute.
Now I know. Yeah.
That's so cute.
Larry back. That was
Oh,
the other book.
Which one?
Guy was reading.
Oh.
He just asked me yesterday. She ordered for me. He did.
The stereotypic breakfast? The stools?
Yeah.
I want to discuss it with some.
Oh, I love.
So,
Okay, so we'll do these.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, wow.
Take care.
Have a good
Bye.
night.
Oh,
Safe
thank
travels.
you. Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Okay.
And
Yeah, we're leaving tomorrow. Thank you. Quick, get it out. So stressful to get there, but yes, we will get there. So let me just grab my mask. Do you know where my mask is?
so are you maybe not doing your trip now because of the momentum ones?